Another rebound. Exum has it blocked in the corner by who else? Derrick, 2011 MVP, Rose.
And everybody just streams out on the floor to greet him, showing the respect. And they all know what this means to him. They know what he's lost.
What's up, everybody? It's your favorite coach's favorite coach. And this Derrick Rose story of him scoring 50 points on Halloween night, playing like vintage D Rose, it moved me. So the subject of today's Paradigm Shift episode is Derrick Rose.
You can see you're very emotional. A huge victory for this team, and it comes from you and your career high 50 points. What does it mean to you, Derrick?
Man, everything, man. I work my ass off, bro.
What separates Derrick Rose from a lot of the athletes we cover in this series is that in his prime, when we watched him play, we all knew exactly why he was killing people. It's the exact same reason you can tell Usain Bolt is effective. His nuclear athleticism afforded him more time and space to make a play. He was an absolute destroyer. It was as if he could hang in the air and change the angle of his attack several times before he found it, and then land. However, he suffered several devastating injuries throughout his career, most notably his ACL tear. And while an ACL tear can put a hitch in his beautiful, elastic biomechanics, I feel a lot of times this injury causes a lot more psychological distress, PTSD. I've seen it. Players are hesitant to commit. They're hesitant to make contact. And for a Skywalker like Derrick Rose, a man who can manipulate his defender in the air, this was major. The last few years of his career were not great. He was under a lot of pressure and had a lot of unreasonable expectations. He was also playing through a lot of pain, but by far he was more emotionally distressed than physically. This was clear when he was on the Knicks. Rose went missing for an entire game without saying a word because, quote, "It was the first time I felt like that emotionally. I needed to be with my family." When he was with the Cavs last year, he took a leave of absence to reflect and reevaluate his career. One of the most common symptoms for depression is losing passion in the things that you love. Basketball was a source of inspiration for him. It was a source of identity. And now, for Derrick Rose, it was becoming a source of trauma. He couldn't have gone to worse situations. There was a ridiculous amount of pressure with the Cavs to win a championship last year. They had a super team. And with the Knicks, he was overpaid with unreasonable expectations on a roster that just could not work. And it was an overall toxic environment. There was also this Adidas rumor circulating that the only reason he was still playing was because he stood to make millions of dollars from his endorsement. Whether or not this was true, where there's smoke, there's fire. For people with rumors like these, there's no doubt their passion for the game is in question. All signs were pointing to him losing interest in the game that he loved. But this catharsis on the court on Halloween night was a beautiful thing. If you watch his teammates on the bench when he was shooting free throws, they were more invested in seeing Derrick Rose score 50 points than to win a game that was definitely still in the balance. When the game was finally over, after Derrick Rose threw himself out to the perimeter to block Dante Exum, he fell to the ground overcome with emotion. He was crying. He had put so much of himself, so much passion into that performance. It was self-expression on the highest level, and he was overcome. It was as if he was starting to believe he would never be able to return to his old form. As if he'd seen the ghost of something long lost. He not only did that, he had his highest scoring performance of all time. I still get goosebumps when I see this clip. His team was so happy for him. It's clear how important he is to this team, and it was beautiful to watch everyone rally around him. So in this video, we're going to look at MVP Derrick Rose and why he was so effective. What were the biomechanics behind that? Then we're going to compare him to the modern Derrick Rose. The Derrick Rose we saw on Halloween absolutely will his team to victory. What are the similarities and what's changed? Anyone who watched him in his athletic prime can attest. He was able to generate force in such a short amount of time. With such little effort, it made no sense. He could jump off of 1 foot or 2 feet equally, but he seemed to prefer to jump off of 2 feet, especially for his dunks. It was as if there was a trampoline underneath him. This was largely due to his jump being more plyometric in nature than just simply brute strength. In plyometrics, you use the stretch shortening cycle, where you rapidly go from eccentric stretch to concentric contraction with a minimal amortization phase, as close to 0.2 of a second as possible. I'm going to eventually do a video dedicated solely to the SSC, But in simple terms, you're utilizing the elastic components of your jump biomechanics. This is opposed to a squat jump where you have a slow eccentric stretch. But watching him in his prime, it was as if he had TNT stored in his muscle spindles. So the lesson we're trying to stress here, train your plyometrics. I can't stress that enough. Derrick Rose is also a massive point guard. He has that V-shaped frame, and he was able to use his shoulders to carve defenders and create unique angles for himself. So back in his prime, Derrick Rose was more of a Russell Westbrook type of a player, a freak athlete who could attack and perform on a different frequency from everyone else. However, he's never been a consistent shooter. It's hard for super springy guys to shoot. There isn't a smooth kinetic shooting chain like there is on Steph Curry. For example, guys like Russell Westbrook, Kenyon Martin, DeAndre Jordan, they're more like spring-loaded cannons. But Derrick Rose has definitely evolved his game. It reminds me a lot of Grant Hill after his microfracture surgery. Now Derrick Rose is honing that same gift he had to create angles for himself in the air, but on a different plane, the floor of the perimeter. Let's break down some of the film from his epic Halloween game performance.
And a mismatch against Rubio. Rose from straight away.
The style of play he had this game really suits the modern NBA offense, as he has to depend on his three-point shot more. If people have to play him close, it's going to open up a lot of opportunities for his game. For example, here he uses a float crossover made famous by Darren Williams. This exaggerated lateral movement baits his defender into overextending, and he's able to effectively counter. This move was set up earlier in the game because he was able to float into some knockdown shots. He's playing defense with passion and purpose, sacrificing his body to chase down players on the perimeter. Several times in this game he would score and then instantly transition to defense and try to steal the ball back. This is some classic D Rose carving the air. He clearly doesn't have the same hang time he used to, but it's producing similar results. In this clip he does a little Pistol Pete Rondo move, something he used to do back in the day. Moving on to the half court, here's some really cool Princeton chin action. Brad Stevens would run something very similar to this for Isaiah Thomas in his 14 series. This is an excellent set for a guy like Rose, as it inevitably leads to one-on-one mismatches going downhill. But most importantly, he's playing with the love for the game again. What reignited him? Maybe it's because he's back in the Midwest, back with a familiar coach like Tom Thibodeau, back with familiar teammates like Taj Gibson and Jimmy Butler, on a team with less pressure. But more than anything, it's coming from an intrinsic place. He isn't proving himself to the media or to a contract. He's proving that he can still play to himself, a man who's conquered a lot of adversity just to be here. And sometimes getting back to that point reminds you why you got there in the first place. Like a man who cheats death, he has a new lease on life. I really hope the Timberwolves succeed this year. I remember being really excited that they're recreating the Chicago Bulls starting five from 2010. And so far, they've already had to deal with their share of adversity. Jimmy Butler's gone, and they need Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins to step up. This season has to be a valuable lesson for them. They've been called out. They are spoiled with talent. And for them to see guys like Jimmy Butler, whose do-or-die mentality got him to where he is, and D Rose, a guy who had the same physical gifts they had but had it ripped away from him, to watch those guys put it on the line and perform, and do it without the gifts that they possess, that really has to make them think. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. As always, please like, subscribe, and share, and we'll see you guys on the next one.